The Muppets have been one of the most iconic parts of the movie and television industry since their creation in 1976, of course by the legendary Jim Henson, who sadly passed away in 1996. This, of course, then led to the merger of Disney and the Muppets, and since their buyout in 2004, we really haven't seen a hell of a lot of Muppets content, compared to what we used to have anyway. Of course, the Muppets have been in the headlines recently with the announcement of the Disney parks, the future of what's going to happen with the Muppet Courtyard, and the beloved Muppet Vision 3D, which we have already covered on the channel before, so check it out. Of course, we did get the iconic 2011 revival and the sequel that was pretty decent in 2014. And since then, we've seen a few attempts to revive the Muppets in modern day film, but realistically, with attempts like the Haunted Mansion film, which were fun, but realistically aren't quite what the Muppet fans really need, it didn't do too well. But last year, that all changed with a brand new Muppet TV show, Muppets Mayhem, which you have not watched, please go and check it out on Disney Plus because it is friggin' awesome. It follows the Electric Mayhem, which is obviously a brand new concept. It stays right away from your main Muppets, obviously Kermit, Gonzo, Fozzie, people like that as well. And it follows Animal, Dr. Teeth, and the rest of the Electric Mayhem recording their first studio album. And it was hugely, hugely successful. So it's proof in the pudding that actually, if Disney do something correctly, they write a script correctly for the Muppets, there's a 2024 and now 2025 audience that wants Muppet content. But in today's video, we are going to be taking it back. We're going to be throwing it back. Think pre-Disney buyout, or even with the current Disney buyout. We are going to be pitching two brand new Muppet remakes that we need to see. One of the most iconic parts of the Muppets over history is the iconic movies that they have done throughout time. Of course, most famous for their remakes and their sort of recreations or their Muppified versions of iconic film and TV classics throughout the years. It's a big reason as to why they were so successful. With features like The Wizard of Oz, you of course have got one of my favourites, Muppets Treasure Island, and one of everybody's favourite Christmas films, which I'm sure that most of you clicking this video would have watched or are planning on watching some point in the near future, A Muppet's Christmas Carol, which is just perfection. Hi, my name is Luis. I'm a filmmaker specialising in animation, and here on the channel we discuss all things Disney, parks, and just films in general. So if you do like that sort of content, please consider hitting like and subscribe. We've got a goal of 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2024, and as of this video being recorded, we are getting very, very close with just over 2 weeks to go. So please, make my Christmas dreams come true, and hopefully we can set a new goal for the new year. Lots of Muppets content coming in the future as well. So, here we go. The other thing is to quickly address that also every single Muppet film we've had so far has at least two main human characters. Usually, there is a minimum of two. So, for example, The Muppets Most Wanted does have three, but most of the time that third character is just like a supporting character, sometimes an A-lister, and to be honest, sometimes having those A-listers in the supporting roles is funnier than having the main character. Ty Burrell, for example. As him and Sam Eagle, a pairing we never knew needed to exist.
Badge? You must have been looking at the wrong badge.
So each of my suggestions will keep that in mind. First up, a little bit more of a left field one, but please just hear me out, okay? This is the one that I think will actually be made in the future. Give me Mary Poppins, Mary Puppets, Muppet Poppins, Mary Muppet Poppins, Muppet Mary Poppins. The title is working, but either way, a remake of the beloved classic Mary Poppins, arguably one of the greatest films of all time. And let me just say straight off the bat, Julie Andrews, Dick Van Dyke will never be replaced. I'm sorry, Emily Blunt, but it's just not gonna happen. They are Mary and Bert, in my opinion. And I would love to cast them as Mary and Bert in this in some way, shape, or form, and we'll dive into that in a second. But who is going to be our two human characters? Now, of course, you may be screaming at the camera going, pick Mary, pick Bert. No. Hear me out, okay? I actually have two characters that immediately spring to mind. Michael and Jane. Of course, the two Banks children from the first film. Don't necessarily know a casting, so you guys make some suggestions for Michael and Jane. And my other option can be, obviously, Mary and Bert being recast, because as much as Dick Van Dyke is still tap dancing at the age of 100, I think dealing with the Muppets in one film is enough, let alone also having to tap dance. But the funniest option for me is giving the role to a Muppet. Because for me, the Muppet that I think should play Mary Poppins herself, Gonzo. His chaotic spin on the character could be absolutely awesome. Let's just say, right, the original plan was for actual Mary Poppins, Julie Andrews, to come and be there for Michael and Jane, just as we see in the original film. However, she gets ill and unfortunately has to call out of her shift at work. So Gonzo is thrown into the mix. That is where we could then also have Julie Andrews come back and reprise her role as Mary Poppins. She could come back in on a I don't know, telephone call or something like that. Oh, I'm so ill, I can't come, sorry. Someone else has to be sent today. And Gonzo, you can see him coming down on the umbrella, just as done in the beginning of the first film. We don't necessarily have to show it until a gust of wind blows him and he flies straight down to the floor. Umbrella turns inside out. smack straight on the floor. True Gonzo fashion. For me, I don't think it could be written better. Gonzo is my Mary Poppins. Bert would then either be played by a singular Muppet or a Muppet duo, which I actually think would work better. And what better Muppet duo to put next to Gonzo than the return of Rizzo the Rat and Pepe the Prawn? I think Pepe make a slightly better solo character. However, we need to give Rizzo some love again. The comedic value would be there, and it would be absolutely incredible to see the three working back together again. And just to see Rizzo and Pepe dressed like Bert, all I could ever ask for. So, supporting characters. Of course, Kermit and Miss Piggy, a huge part of the Muppets name, but these guys are going to be playing Mr. and Mrs. Banks. The only thing I think could slightly be an issue here is the personality of Mr. Banks isn't quite that of Kermit. Of course, Kermit is the nice, caring, friendly, doesn't want to get anyone in trouble, whereas Miss Piggy is the very much I do not care vibe, which is not quite Mrs. Banks as much. However, I think with a slight tweak to their character here and there, Mr. Banks and Mrs. Banks can be played by Kermit and Miss Piggy. I also like the fact that Kermit wouldn't be a pivotal role in this film. As much as I adore Kermit, I just think that some of the better Muppet movies happens when Kermit takes a slight backseat. For example, The Muppets Treasure Island. Okay, now some quick fire castings. Of course, the beloved Uncle Albert. Who better to play him? Fozzie, okay? Can you imagine him waka-waka-ing, flying, laughing, and rolling in the air? It would be absolutely fantastic. There is no better way to play Uncle Albert than Fozzie. Okay, the evil bank guys. Give me Sweetums. Uncle Deadly, Crazy Harry, and Lou. But for me, Central Banker. I personally don't think this can work well as a Muppet. I just don't think it's nice to give Muppets that such an evil character. It doesn't work as well, which is why you see, obviously, Tim Curry being the main villain. Spoilers if you haven't seen Muppet Treasure Island. So for me, there's only one evil man who should be in the Muppets universe. One grumpy old git who actually does mean well. Michael Caine. Bring him back. Dr. Bunsen Honeydew and Beaker, what better role to give them than the maids inside the Banks' household? I think the two personalities kind of fit quite well as well. You've got the crazy, chaotic one, which is Beaker, and you've got the more serious one, which is, of course, Dr. Bunsen Honeydew. However, for me, again, we don't have to go into the sort of nastier side of these sort of relationships that we see in the Mary Poppins film. I think these two would fit perfectly. And to be honest, seeing Beaker in a maid's costume, I think would be 95% of the reason people watch this film. Rolf and Walter need to appear somewhere, so maybe the policeman that returns the kite, maybe making two of them. Of course, we will have iconic Muppet cameos as well throughout the entire film, seeing people like Beauregard, Thog, Behemoth, and the legendary Swedish chef. Give me the Menaminars as well. Could be an interesting one. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And topping it off, of course, one of the most iconic characters in the Mary Poppins franchise, Admiral Boom. Is there a better casting than Sam Eagle? I don't think so. Statler and Waldorf, where are they going to go? Either side, maybe? Or it could be quite fun to make them the ponies that the guys ride on in the Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious bit of the film. That could be quite interesting. Of course, you've got your penguins. Are the penguins? Or maybe Camilla and friends could be quite interesting. And as I say, it would be absolutely amazing to see Julie and Dick Van Dyke both come back for their roles in some way, shape, or form. If Julie doesn't reprise that role at the beginning of the film as the sick Mary Poppins, maybe give her the bird lady. Maybe Walter, if he doesn't end up being the policeman. He could whistle feed the birds instead. Of course, that's his talent. But I honestly don't know where I would cast Dick Van Dyke, because he is such an iconic character, such a recognizable face, and of course a huge part of the Mary Poppins film. I just don't think he's replaceable. Maybe an alternate storyline is going to have to be written, a flashback. Maybe even when we see Mary at the beginning of the film explaining that she is sick, it's all a ploy to actually go to the movies with Dick Van Dyke. They are together in a relationship. Who knows? Maybe they briefly cross paths in the film. Of course, as I say, as incredibly agile as Dick Van Dyke is, and nearly 100 years old, dealing with the Muppets, it's probably not what he is looking forward to. But final thought to leave you for this one. Just imagine Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious with the electric mayhem. Need I say more? Okay, now the second one. This is one that I have seen online a little bit, but I definitely wanted to tackle in today's video. One that is just not going to happen because, of course, it's owned by Universal. They are never going to give it up because it is one of their biggest properties of all time. I'm talking about the iconic Back to the Future. This will never be Muppetified, but I would absolutely love for it to happen. And straight off, our two leads are our two-faced characters. I don't think the original Dr. Emmett Brown can physically be topped, so get Christopher Lloyd back for the role. He's still cooking. He's still doing amazing. But if we were to recast it, if he didn't want the role, maybe do the fan cast, Robert Downey Jr., because if they did a reboot of that, I think it'd be great. He's been on the first call for a while now. If we couldn't get RDJ, if we couldn't get Christopher Lloyd, then maybe Michael Keaton would be a good one as well, bringing his Beetlejuice vibe over to the Doc Emmett Brown.
I'm gonna make you so happy.
But as I say, Christopher Lloyd was the best we'd ever get. Maybe he can have like some scientist apprentices as well. I know we're still on the face characters, but Dr. Bunsen Honeydew and Beaker as his sort of like assistants that look after Einstein. Of course, Einstein could be reprising his role as a regular dog, or Sprocket. Okay, so our lead man. Again, widely fan cast for this role alongside RDJ, but give us Tom Holland. He gives the original Michael J. Fox through and through, and there's been some like screen tests and sort of like re-VFXing of these guys. And I mean, need I say more? These guys are perfect for the role. The vibes, the looks, the chemistry, it's all there. And his charm, for me, would perfectly pair with the Muppets. However, the first issue I do have with this is then I don't know who would play Biff without casting him as a live action person. If Biff was our live action character, then I think Gonzo as Doc Brown, potentially, and maybe Walter as Marty. Then subsequently use the other lead as Biff, the other lead as Marty, you know, just basically replace a triangle. So if Walter was Marty, then you've got Doc and Biff as our face characters. If Doc was Gonzo, you've got Biff and Marty as our face characters. And if Biff was a Muppet, then Walter and Doc are our face characters. You know what I'm trying to say. And of course, if that's the case, who are we going to cast as Jennifer? If Marty was played by Gonzo, the obvious choice would be Camilla the Chicken. If Marty was Tom Holland, Zendaya. Again, need I say more? She's got the looks, she's got the vibe, she's got the personality. It works perfectly. It's an on-screen chemistry that obviously we know and love from the Spider-Man films. You know what? I'm changing the rules. We're going full out for the Back to the Future one. We've got Tom Holland as Marty McFly. We've got Christopher Lloyd, Michael Keaton, or Robert Downey Jr. as Doc Brown. We've got Zendaya as Jennifer and someone as Biff. Now, I was slightly conflicted who should play George and Lorraine. On the one side, casting two complete polar opposites, it could work, but they do have to fall in love. My first idea was Fozzie as George, which I think kind of works well. And then Lorraine, of course, to be Miss Piggy. And who else is it going to be? However, the issue is I don't feel comfortable making Miss Piggy kiss Fozzie. It's not going to happen. This guy standing idle while a big fluffy teddy bear necks on with his missus is just, it's not something I'm comfortable with in this film. So Kermit for me would be George, Piggy would then be Lorraine. Kermit does also then kind of give that sort of like helplessness, the lost, but also the leader. He needs guidance and encouragement at times, much like George does. And then Piggy is just that crazy absolute lunacy, wild card, much like Lorraine. And then, okay, the rest of the McFly family. Not a lot of screen time, so pretty easy to do. Marty's sister Linda could be played by Camilla. And then his brother can be played by Walter. I do feel kind of bad that he doesn't get a little bit more attention because, of course, he was fantastic in the 2011 film and again in the 2014 film. So I do feel bad not giving him a more centralized character. But with characters such as Gonzo and the beloved ones that I grew up with, I just cannot not cast them. Strickland, who better than Sam the Eagle? Biff's gang, we've got Match, Skinhead, and 3D. Sweetens, Pepe, Rizzo. Done. Or if you want a slightly angrier approach, because I guess Pepe and Rizzo are not quite as angry as you'd think. And of course, these guys are kind of small as well, so for like an on-screen presence. Maybe Lou, Crazy Harry, and Uncle Deadly. But again, I don't like giving Muppets like negative vibes. I think Lou should be played by the Swedish Chef. Need I say more? Maybe Rizzo and family is the Peabody family as well. Of course, the guys who own the Twin Pines Mall area before it becomes the Lone Pine Mall, thanks to Marty. But I think this would just work with the whole Rizzo family as well, obviously, as we've seen in previous films as well. Now, this character would have just usually fallen under the radar. It's a bit of a quick-fire casting. Of course, he's only on screen for a few seconds, but I cannot not talk about this character. Of course, as many people already know, the judge for the talent show that they just did not like Marty's guitar riff for was a huge cameo by the very famous Huey Lewis. It would be amazing to see this reprised in any way, shape, or form. I'd love to get Huey back to take this role again, but I need to take this opportunity to disregard a human character and scream out the elephant in the room here. These two, they look identical. I'm sorry, but these guys just look too alike that I cannot not cast these guys in the correct roles. Not to mention, they are both sitting desk roles. It works perfectly. They both sit behind desks, they both wear suits, they both wear glasses, and they both judge stuff. However, Huey Lewis is Huey Lewis, so it could be kind of funny to have him back and sit him next to this guy. I can't remember his name. See if anyone notices the difference. Couple more quick fire rounds as well. Mayor Goldie Wilson, Ralph, or Fozzie. I think Fozzie could work quite well. And then where do I put Fozzie? And then where do I put Ralph? Oh, I know who could play Biff. Miss Poogie. There you go. That's my Biff. That I thought about while I was filming this video. However, I do want to give Fozzie, going back to Fozzie and Rolf, I do want to give Fozzie a bit more of a main character because I adore him. So maybe an additional character can be written. The Starlighters from the iconic Enchantment Under the Sea dance, of course. Who else am I going to cast other than the Electric Mayhem? With Dr. Teeth taking the place of Marvin Berry, of course being the leader of both groups. Animal getting a drum solo, along with Tom Holland ripping up that guitar when they play Johnny Be Good, or a Muppets song could be quite fun. Or scrap the entire video idea. Make our leads as human characters, and they are transported into a Muppet version of Back to the Future. And the human characters basically have to use the Muppet characters to get back again. Give us the whole 3 films. Realistically, I think both of these films could work really, really well. Let me know if you'd make any changes. Head over to the community tab on my YouTube page and decide for yourselves, Mary Poppins or Back to the Future. Which one do you think would work better? And if you guys like this sort of content, you like Muppets in the future, click these cards here because there's some definite videos that you want to watch on the channel, and click that subscribe button as well. Get us to 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2024. And trust me, there's some big Muppet content on the way. For now, I'll see you in next week's video. Peace. Peace.